In the previous video session, we discussed about how the repair and maintenance of the cells are needed for the sustenance of life. Now, in this session, we will be discussing the first requirement for repair and maintenance, that is the production of energy. And for the production of energy, we need to understand the process of nutrition, taking in of the food. So without the food, we cannot get the energy. So now let us discuss about the process, the first life process, which is called as nutrition. Now, how to define nutrition? Nutrition is the process of taking in food and its utilization by the cells of our body. Okay, so based on different criteria, based on different processes, the nutrition is divided into different types. Some organisms, they utilize simple inorganic substances and they make their own food. And the other category of organisms, they utilize the complex foods or the complex materials prepared by those organisms, and they later break it down into simple substances. So this is how there are different methods of nutrition, but the aim is fulfilled in both, that is to take in the food and utilize in the way to repair and maintain, to sustain the life. So let us just understand what are the different types of nutritions found on earth by different types of organisms. So the nutrition broadly is divided by two types. One is the autotrophic and the other one is heterotrophic. Now the organisms who can utilize the inorganic materials, simple substances from the nature on their own and prepare their own food are called as the autotrophic organisms. So autotrophic organisms, they prepare their own food. And the heterotrophic organisms, they are dependent on the autotrophs to get their food. So heterotrophs, hetero means on other, auto means on their own, hetero means on the other organisms. So it is not the same organism. So they are dependent on autotrophs. So when it is the question of autotrophic nutrition, the autotrophic nutrition also different types are there. Some of the organisms, they utilize the solar energy and they prepare carbon compounds in their body, like the organisms who are having but some other organisms, they are dependent on the chemicals. They utilize the chemicals to get their energy. Some organisms, they depend on light to get their energy. So there are two different types of autotrophs, the photoautotrophs and the chemoautotrophs. So there are some bacteria which are dependent on chemicals and they can also get their own food. They prepare synthesize their own food by utilizing the chemicals available on earth. But when we talk about the autotrophic nutrition, immediately the picture comes to our mind is that of the plants. The plants which are having the capability to produce the carbohydrate compounds. So the autotrophic nutrition examples are green plants, bacteria, some bacteria, it is not all bacteria, some bacteria and the blue-green algae, better known as nowadays it is cyanobacteria. So these are the organisms which carry out the autotrophic nutrition. So they have a special pigment in them which enables them to prepare or synthesize their own food, and the particular pigment is known as chlorophyll. We will be discussing details of chlorophyll later in this chapter. Now, we will not discuss heterotrophic nutrition at this moment. We will be discussing it later. So first let us understand the concept of autotrophic nutrition. So in autotrophic nutrition, when it comes to our mind, the first thing is the photoautotrophs, the organisms which utilize the pigment chlorophyll and they carry out the synthesis of food process. So let us see the process of autotrophic nutrition in the form of a process, the light process, which is called as the photosynthesis. So photosynthesis can be carried out by different organisms who have this green color pigment, which is called as the chlorophyll pigment. Now, in these organisms, the photosynthetic organisms, they utilize certain raw materials from the environment and they complete the process of food synthesis. Now, we will be going into the raw materials in detail, what are the raw materials utilized and how they are utilized for the synthesis of food in the photosynthetic organisms. Now for this process, we should understand the process, the equation of photosynthesis. Now what are the raw materials which are used? Let us see. The raw materials, number one is the carbon dioxide. We call it as CO2. Okay. The second raw material which is used during the photosynthesis process is water. And the third raw material which is used is the light. And there is a fourth requirement of photosynthesis that is known as the chlorophyll pigment. Chlorophyll pigment. So these are the requirements of photosynthetic process, or we can say the requirements, the raw materials which is used to produce or synthesize the food. Now the first thing is carbon dioxide. We should understand the raw material along with its source. Now from where the plant is getting the carbon dioxide? The carbon dioxide is received from atmosphere. The atmosphere is providing the carbon dioxide to the plant. Now water is received from soil. The source of water is soil, and the water is taken by the xylem tissue. The water is taken up by the xylem tissue. Light is provided by sun, the solar energy, and the chlorophyll pigment is present in the cells. The certain cells, the cells which look green, the leaves will be providing. So the source of chlorophyll is the leaves of the plant. So now we know these are the raw materials or the requirements for the process of photosynthesis. Let us now see how those raw materials or the requirements are used to synthesize the food. So we can see this as the equation of photosynthesis. Now what is the equation of photosynthesis? How can we write the equation of photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide, when it is combining with water in the presence of sunlight and inside the chlorophyll, or by utilizing the chlorophyll pigment, it produces the carbohydrates. So we can write CO2 plus water. It gives us the carbohydrate, the simple carbohydrate in the form of glucose. We get it, the formula for glucose is C6H12 and O6 plus the byproducts of this particular life process are water and oxygen. Water and oxygen. Now we can balance this equation. 6 number of carbon dioxide, 12H2O produces C6H12O6 plus, I'll just write it again, 6H2O and 6O2. Okay, 6O2. So now the equation is balanced. We can see the equation is balanced. So 6CO2 plus 12H2O gives rise to C6H12O6, the glucose molecule, the simple carbohydrate, that is the glucose molecule, and along with that the byproducts which are produced, that is the water and the oxygen molecule. We all know that the plants provide us oxygen. How do they provide us oxygen? They provide us oxygen during the photosynthesis process. Now we can write here in the presence of sunlight, and we can write the presence of chlorophyll. So this completes the equation of photosynthesis. Right? Okay. Now let us understand what are the different stages of photosynthesis. So what are the events that is taking place in the photosynthesis process? Now the events of photosynthesis. Now what are the events taking place during the photosynthesis process? The first event is absorption of solar energy. Absorption of solar energy, right? So the first thing, the solar energy must be trapped or absorbed by the cells of the plant. The second is conversion of solar energy into chemical energy and splitting up of water molecule. So conversion of solar energy into chemical energy and splitting of water molecule. Conversion of solar energy into the chemical energy and the splitting of water molecule. So that is the second stage of photosynthesis. Now, what is the third stage? I am going to erase the equation, and I will write the stage 3 in photosynthesis. So 1 and 2 I have written here. The stage 3 I will be writing here. Reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. Okay, reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. Okay, now for understanding this whole process, these are the events, these are the steps of photosynthesis. Now, in this condition, we should understand that these two steps, particular steps are containing, or they are coming under the light reaction of photosynthesis. These two steps are called as the light reaction of photosynthesis. Now the third step is called as the dark reaction of photosynthesis. So how many reactions are taking place during photosynthesis? There are two reactions which is taking place. One is the dark reaction, the other one is light reaction. Okay, so let us sum up here the reactions which is taking place. The light reactions and the dark reaction. Now, as the name says, it does not mean that one reaction is taking place in the daytime and the other reaction is taking place during the night time, right? So, light reaction does not mean that it is taking place during the daytime, and dark reaction does not mean that it is taking place during the night time. The name is given as per the dependency of the reaction on light or not. Whether the completion of the reaction depends on the presence of light or not. Based on that, we have segregated the photosynthetic reactions into two categories. That is light reaction, which is a more light dependent reaction, and the dark reaction, which does not require light for its completion. And these two reactions, they take place one after the other. So if the light reaction is there, that means the dark reaction has to follow it. And the completion of photosynthesis, one photosynthetic cycle, is the collection of both the reactions. That is the light reaction and the dark reaction. Now what are the events? Let us sum up what are the events of light reaction and the dark reaction. So the light reaction is having two stages. One is the absorption of solar energy, that is the step 1, and the conversion of solar energy into the chemical energy, plus the splitting of water molecules. So this is the light reaction. So this completes the light reaction of photosynthesis. And then the third step comes in the form of reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, right? And that does not require the presence of light. But these two reactions, these two events, they need the presence of solar energy. Clear? So, in the next video session, we will be discussing about the location of photosynthesis, the role of chlorophyll, and the role of stomata in photosynthesis.